backwoods, and I was collecting some firewood, and this is way before anything of CE5, I felt it was like up in the mountains, and it was like clear. I mean, you could see all the stars incredibly. And I felt an intelligence coming from space, like, when you feel like somebody's trying to get your attention or something, you feel this strong presence, and this presence had like a clarity of of intelligence. It was so strong that I actually lifted my hand out into the space and said, is there somebody out there? And a star, I thought it was a star, came down and started bobbing up and down like a yes, and was scintillating different colors. I called my girlfriend over, and it kind of freaked her out a bit. I kind of wanted them to come in closer. I really wanted to interact. I wanted to meet these beings, but I think they sensed the fear, and so they backed off. That year, I mean, it's been crickets pretty much since that. That year was like, ever since I met this elderly lady at this, the first time I ever went to a UFO thing, and it's kind of a long, crazy story. Anyway, it was a hitman with a mafia that had contact with these beings, and she was, anyway, I won't go into all that, but I had two incredible experiences. One, it felt like I was on board a craft that they put me through some type of spinning vortex, and it was like this head leader of this group, and the rest of these little guys that were all like wise old men that were all, seemed like they were one mind. And it was like I had two experiences that seemed like teaching experiences. It sounds pretty wild and crazy. I don't usually talk about it, but they put me through some type of vortex where it was started spinning, and it became so intense, this spinning sensation, that I just said, I turned this over to my higher self. I can't handle this, and all of a sudden I felt like I was teleported to this beautiful environment on top of a mountain on a spring day. It's like there was this euphoric feeling I can't even put into words of and as I was observing this experience, I started to notice that it was starting to pulsate and flicker, and I was all of a sudden projected into like an old time movie theater. The old theaters used to go, you'd see between the frames, and what they were showing me was that at the higher frequency vibrations, in between the pulses of creation, we're creating our realities, and that I was at this exalted state of consciousness, and I said to myself, I bet I could bring this back into my body that's back on my bed. And I was able to do that. And it lasted for, half hour, an hour, until the normal mundane thoughts of the world and having to go to work and everything started to come back in. And another experience I had that was kind of a teaching experience that led me to the work of Dr. Marcel Vogel, who was IBM's top scientist that was working with the consciousness interface between crystals and water, was a being that looked kind of like an Eben with a large head and eyes. I was supposed to be a hypnotic regression. I had this Kundalini experience of millions of volts going through my hands and feet, and this being was conveying projected in space a sphere, and as I observed, different geometries formed within the spheres, one into the other, What it was showing was the interconnection of geometry and consciousness. And it left this burning desire in me to try to understand everything I could about the subject. I didn't even know anything about geometry. I didn't even know what platonic solids were at the time. And so, that eventually led me to the work with Marcel Vogel. And these are detailed out in the lab notes at marcelvogel.org, if anybody wants to check them out. But these are these experiences I don't normally talk about that I had back in 1977 that, got my interest.
Do you, have you ever had a negative experience?
Never.
Firsthand experience yourself?
No, I never had a negative experience, and these felt positive, friendly, and they felt educational, like they were teaching me something.
Awesome. No, I think that's great.
No reptilians trying to eat me or anything like that.
Always good to know. Now, with regards to the relationship, I mean, do you practice CE5 currently?
On my own, yes. Once in a while. I've been mostly focused on earthly matters. I live off the grid in the mountains of Oregon with my wife, Rebecca, and we're pretty much self-sufficient. I just been focusing on this greenhouse and growing plants and food lately as my sort of a therapy, I guess.
I understand. Okay. All right.
So I don't want to take it.
Where do you see this going in the future? Where do you see this? Because I want to be clear. My personal view is I think it should. I support the ground up version, and I know people may have strong opinions about this, but and maybe it's the best way for disclosure to come out for everyone to know is from the citizens. And then, of course, I mean, the government, if anything, they have input. It's great. Validation is great to have. So I think, and if we can, everybody work together, I think that's the best idea, ultimately, for everybody to get on the right page.
Yeah, I'm in support of that. Yeah, definitely. All we can do is what we can do. I think it's important to have a positive vision. I believe that the advanced technologies, such as the med beds and the secret space program. We've got advanced technologies in medical, energy, propulsion. I spent 10 years after the Bush administration denied the congressional hearing. We had a database of about 300 scientists and inventors, and Dr. Greer set up an energy corporation, Advanced Energy Research Organization, that I was one of 6 technical advisors flying around the planet, meeting with these different scientists and inventors and vetting these technologies that claim to be over unity. And, just after people were suicided, murdered, and many received national security orders, which basically state that your invention's been deemed to be a national security threat, that you can't reveal it to the world. After 10 years, I just gave up. They have such a control over this that they are not going to release these technologies until there's something of a major event happening. What is that, a med bed?
I ran across that today, oddly enough. A short video with a med bed in it. Go figure.
I don't know if it's
thank you for that.
Secret space program med bed that can reverse age you back to your 20s, but yeah, there's a lot of things coming out. Hopefully, I believe there's a lot of good people and high level positions that could bring about an amazing change.
Brings me to my final topic on free energy. Tell us where you know what you've got your hands, where you got your hands in previously, and what you've experienced.
There was so many. You can imagine 10 years. I worked a lot with the Bedini brothers, who both mysteriously died on the same day. You've got this Dutch inventor that we set up. Dr. Greer rented for Rebecca and myself an apartment down the street from Thomas Jefferson's place. We set up a temporary lab, and I was meeting with these different scientists, you know, because of my technical background. And he proved to me, he had this one Dutch scientist, he had wrote multiple volumes of advanced calculus on dynamics of electron flow, and he had a little box producing about 140 watts of power. He was found slumped over dead in the airport parking lot. He was going to Europe to patent it. I went down with Professor Loiter down to the Dominican Republic, where this Mohawk Indian inventor had produced a device with less than 1 watt going into it and over 500 watts powering, you know, a 300-watt light bulb, 100-watt light bulb, boom blaster, playing Caribbean music, oscillating fan, all these things for at least an hour and a half. As I was going to fly back down and blueprint this thing, basically make a schematic of it and send it out 5 different postal methods in case we get whacked on the way back, you know, somebody be able to reproduce it. Inventor said, you know, 2 CIA agents showed up at his door before we got there and said, "This works, you're dead." So he completely disassembled the entire thing. There's so many horror stories. It's like a bad memory, you know, of all these situations. Basically, they make sure that that, you know, nothing comes out that, you know, challenges the status quo. This other brilliant inventor, he had this little device producing about 160 watts of power, really inexpensive. He made like 60,000 of them. And his cars were blown up. He was thrown in jail, got a national security order. I'm still in contact with him. And he's got another energy device that they haven't given him a national security order on. But, you know, it's just, you're just barking up a tree that it'll take you out on a limb that's going to break.
Okay. We're going to have to do it eventually, though. I mean, we're going to have to get off of.
Think of what the Navy patents have been releasing, you know, about fusion reactors that can produce like a terawatt of power, anti-gravity. You know, they've been releasing it in the patent office. You know, they have force fields, warp drives, things that you hear about in Star Trek. And these aren't theoretical. These are operational technologies. And so in kind of they're kind of like seeding it out there into the awareness, you know, through the patent office.
Okay. And I want to go over something with you. Lastly, now this was leaked to Richard Dolan.
Oh, right. Yeah, the 8 different, yeah, I've seen that.
What, yeah, so energy pulse propulsion system projects, ion propulsion systems, anti-gravity propulsion systems. I'll let everyone continue that on their own. But I just wanted to point this out, that this was leaked to Richard Dolan. And this is a list of the existing projects that DARPA has going on. And those are the same people that came out with the internet, by the way. But these are all of our existing projects that are going on. And I have to say, by record and being a military, a brat myself, a military brat, 20 years, it seems to be 20 years more or less. Whereas they're ahead of us, and then 20 years pass, and then they start releasing this stuff. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen in this case, but correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. Like, what are your thoughts? You think any of this technology is going to come out either in small form, if we haven't already seen it, or in large form? Because I think, we're getting close to that ledge where we're pushing our planet to extinction if things continue like they are. I don't mean I'm not being dramatic by saying that. I don't think anyone would contest that, but what are your thoughts?
Well, the glaring lie in that is that, they're saying that these are developmental technologies, that they haven't tested it outside of Area 51. When we did the National Press Club back in 2001, it inspired the hacker in the UK, Gary McKinnon, who, the Bush administration wanted to put him away for 70 years in prison because he discovered the US Navy's secret space program, Solar Warden, where, they have huge kilometers long battle cruisers out there that were developed and launched back in the 1980s. This is just putting a red flag of disinformation for me. Those programs are probably real, but the fact that they haven't been deployed into operation outside of Area 51 testing kind of stares in the face as being a lie.
Gary McKinnon was his name. Wasn't that the UK
Yes.
gentleman? Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they went after him hardcore.
The Solar Warden program, the non-terrestrial officers, he found interestingly enough, the USSS with the 3 S's, Hillenkotter and the LeMay, both of which were MJ-12 members. Hillenkotter was the MJ-1, of the first MJ-12 group, and LeMay was also brought into MJ-12. That would make sense. And lists of non-terrestrial officers and fleet-to-fleet transfers. And this completely backs up, the testimonies of William Tompkins, who there was Freedom of Information Act requests on backing his testimony. He worked where my father worked in the 1940s at the Naval Air Station in San Diego, where the 29 Navy spies were giving reports of what the Nazi SS secret space program were doing with the reptilian extraterrestrials. Some of it was even hieroglyphics that they were trying to decipher and trying to catch up. And they were distributing this out to different, corporations and things in order to try to understand this technology. The Navy spies could hardly believe what was going on in the reports that they were giving, that they were basically getting the Nazi S to help them work in building these fleets with their slaves and go out and planet galaxy conquests, outside the galaxy as well as on Earth here. So, it's you start digging into this, and high level admirals and captains in the Navy, fully supported his testimony.
And I did see, I have, looked at and seen the list that he had drawn out in terms of non-terrestrial officers. I've ran into people where they said their son was a non-terrestrial officer, didn't take it beyond that. But it's curious, I want to just include here that Gary McKinnon, he found, because he listened to Donna O'Hare's testimony, that's what got him on this trail to search the NASA. NASA's coming out and in the news getting on board with everything. But let's not forget, they've been supposedly airbrushing, these items out of pictures, satellite pictures, what have you.
That's right. She
We
worked
also have
there
the
for
testimony from Wolf, don't remember, Carl Wolf, about structures on the moon. So you're not too far off the base with people being on the back half of the moon, dark side of the moon, what have you. But we have had people give that testimony. It kind of puts this to shame. So I'm not buying it. We have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do. And it was a disappointment to me that they went only as far back as 2014. I mean,
well, a lot of the public, this is kind of like, stuff they throw out there. And then people just don't have the time to deeply research all the documents that have been authenticated, all the witness testimonies. And, I went all the way back to the year 1900, and I know it goes further than that. But in the 20th and 21st century, there's a lot of revealing information that shows what the true story is that's been hidden.
Thanks so much, you guys, for this interesting interview. So much research and things. This is our chance to open up the floor to the EXO Metaverse members to share contact stories. So if you haven't shared a contact story that you've had and you want to, this is your chance to do that, and you can raise your hand. If there's nobody sharing contact stories, we'll take questions for Kenny or Dan. So we can do that. I know that John Ramirez had a question, but let's see first. You guys can raise your hand using the reactions on the Zoom. It's like the little smiley face with the plus. That's a good way to raise your hand, and I will get to you if you want to share a contact story tonight for the archives that we're building. Okay, great, John, welcome. Go ahead. We'd like to ask if you do share that it's okay that we publish it out. And Dan and Kenny will get back to you with questions, but the floor is yours right now, John. Welcome.
Okay. First off, thank you, everyone. This is, which John are you talking to?
It's your chance now to share a contact story that you've had. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, in 1974, driving a 1965 Volkswagen Bug down the street in Salt Lake City with my then wife, I pulled over because the craft was low flying, a lot of lights, and was zipping from one place to another in the sky. And so we pulled off the side of the road. And I'd been in the military in 1967. I'd seen some air shows. I was on guard duty, so I'd seen some crazy maneuvers before, but nothing like that. And so I described this, my wife and I, we hadn't talked to each other in 29 years, and that thing had taken place 42 years prior. I asked my daughter, ask your mother if she's ever seen a UFO. And I described to her the craft, and I described to her the event. And she called me. She ran out. She said, Dad, I just asked Mom, and she described it right down to, she was 3 blocks away from where I said we pulled off. But she described it like it was yesterday, and that was 1974. And I had in 1955, my father had brought the book of all these UFO sightings, and I was 8 years old, so we talked about it around the dinner table. So here it is, all these years later in '74, and I had another sighting in 2019 here in Lake Havasu, where looked like a star next to the moon, and I'm laying back outside in the desert, and I kept staring at that, and it started moving, and I look away because, my eyes just making that move. I looked, and that came across the sky and did a boomerang movement. It was so high. I saw a F-106 pilot friend a couple of days later and described it to him, what happened. I came in and wrote it down. He said, I don't know anything of ours that can do anything like that. So it was definitely quite amazing. Those are the two experiences I've had. Nothing of
Anything negative?
No, nothing negative. It's all, yes. It had a good feeling about it. Very good feeling about it. I've looked forward to it my whole life.
Thank you for that.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks for sharing your experiences too, Dan. That was great. So I'm going to thank you, John, so much for sharing. I'm going to bring John Ramirez on for a question here. And again, if you do have a contact story, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll do that. Oh, I see Greg. Welcome, Greg, one of our programmers that's using his big brain to help the movement. We'll go to you next, Greg, and go ahead, John, with your question.
Thank you, Zenka. Dan, I was intrigued at your background. I think you were a CT, I think that what they called it, a communications technician back in the day, or a cryptologic technician. Is that true, Dan?
Oh, you mean my military?
Your Navy rate was CT?
Oh, no. I was a radioman.
A radioman. Okay, I understand. I was, full disclosure, I was an electronic warfare technician, EW. And after I finished my naval service in '79, after college for 4 years, '84, I went into CIA, eventually became chief of ELINT, electronic intelligence there. And so I had 25 years of experience, and a lot of what you said resonated with me. For folks who think that Dan is making stuff up, no, he isn't. No, he is not. It is very truthful. It resonates with me in full truthfulness. I just want to ask you, Dan, what is your opinion of why? I find it suspicious that in early on in June of 2020, in June of 2020, the SISI, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, put out a comment in the draft for the Intelligence Authorization Act to do everything that we think they're supposed to do in DNI, 180 days report, et cetera, et cetera. I did some research, having looked at congressional budgets and how Congress passes laws. All of that language was stripped out. It is not true that there's 180-day legislation. If you look in Division W, which runs the intelligence community in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, signed by President Trump then, there is none of that language in there. What happened, I think, was that the Pentagon got wind of that Senate wanted to do this, and they got the Navy to circumvent what would be a congressionally legislated mandate of a report from the DNI, and instead assigned it to the Navy, which is not to get too politically wonky, but it's a Title 10 intelligence agency, CIA's Title 50. And so they basically said, okay, the military would take over. And so with the military taking over, they restricted, I think, a lot of data from 2004 to present. They completely threw out everything before 2004. Basically, it's just whatever the Navy intercepted or collected, Tic Tac, Gimbal, Go Fast. They didn't, I think they discounted all that. And
yes,
like CI colleagues and myself, we were wondering, why didn't they ask us what we know? We know a lot of what went on, but they kind of, is this part of the truth embargo? Is this by design that the Pentagon still wants to control the narrative, that the military intelligence still wants to control the narrative? Because civilian intelligence is very different from that. What is your opinion on that? Why did they just narrowly restricted all that information? I mean,
Thank you for
all I wanted was one report, Dan. Only one report. 1947, July 1947. All you got to do is just do one report, and I'll be happy. You can throw all the other ones away.
Yes.
Do the first one, and I'll be happy. That's the disclosure. Instead, they're going, off to like, oh, okay, triangular crackers. I don't know why they did that. Any insight you have, I would appreciate.
Well, thank you both. Thanks, Greg, for that. And I totally agree. When you consider, I look at this, besides being a witness, I also was an ex-ABC newsman. So my focus was, why is this being heavily done with a limited hangout, as the intelligence agencies called? What was it sanitized? When you look at the control of the New York Times, right at the center of, along with Washington Post, CNN, MS, the rest of the things, they started out with the 2004 Nimitz incident, as you mentioned, and just went from that forward, as you're saying, and they built this narrative, all connected with the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program out of the Pentagon and everything like that. And with the alien threat narrative, this is just one aspect of the deep state agenda. This is just one card that they can play with these false flag operations that they, it's one possibility that they can do. When you consider that, when you consider that the infiltration that has occurred and the control of the narrative moving toward an agenda that is against the American people, that could be used, you can't say anything here, because of the extreme censorship that there, the Nazi eugenics and the genocidal plans that they have for the public. There's a number of different agendas. The alien false flag agenda is just one aspect that they could use. So, the movie, The Cosmic Hoax, is just part of the picture. There's a much larger picture that most of the public, they don't have time to research this, and they have no idea that we have a domestic enemy that is infiltrated.
Greg, did you have something? Give you the opportunity here.
I'm gonna go ahead and add Greg. Thank you, Dan, for that. And John, thanks for your question and comments. It is so wild, all this information. So Greg, do you want to share a contact experience here? We've got you on.
This is kind of pertinent to what Dan was saying. And Dan, hi, it's been 16, 17 years since I talked to you, and you're right on the money on this stuff. And, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, full time almost. And I've learned a lot. And what's coming out right now, if I really think about it, it makes me very angry. This has been going on, but it is what it is. Anyhow, in regards to the Navy stuff, I just really understood that in about 2015, finally, everything came together. But I had an experience in about 2000 in Virginia. I was there with a friend. It was about 2 a.m, and we were sitting in her living room or whatever room, facing to the southeast. And we're talking, and it was a very dark night. And I keep seeing this orange object coming at us from the southeast. And finally I went, what the hell is this thing? And we walked outside, and it was this huge craft that was glowing orange. It was low. It was so dark, I can't tell you how low. It was not making a single sound. It probably was at least as long as a 747, probably longer, and maybe half of the wings on it, but absolutely silent, floating over our head. And once it got over our head, all of a sudden there was a real loud metal clang, steel on steel. And it sounded like a submarine was diving. I've heard them opening up all the valves and whatever. Well, then it went to warp right over our head. And I've never seen anything like it before. My friend Denise really wasn't into all this stuff. You know, we both freaked out, ran through the house in seconds. I looked to the other side, there's nothing there, of course. So I went to a map and I started looking, and it was a straight line to Norfolk, the Naval Air Station Naval Base. I never thought it was an ET craft. I didn't know what it was until it all made sense with all the stuff coming out about the secret space program. So anyhow, yeah, you know, there's been a whole lot of things over the last 30 years that I've personally seen, because I don't really believe a lot of things unless I have a personal experience. You know, that's just me kind of, and all the things that I know have been pieces fitting together over 30 years, and you know, things I've seen or been shown or whatever. But yeah, it's great to hear from you. I'm glad Kenny got you on here, and so that's it.
It concretes it in when you have a personal experience. After I worked for like 13 years, Naval Electronic Engineering Center, I went up to see this Hopi Indian friend of my brother's, 107-year-old, and I pulled over the side of the road after driving for hours, and he yanked me out onto the road and he said, "Look, look, 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 look." And it was about 50 feet in diameter, about 100 feet over our head. He must have seen it when we were way up on top of this mountain overlooking the Arizona desert. And it was glowing white with a greenish hue to it, and went right over her head and then shot straight out and did a right angle turn. And that
definitely makes a mark, a permanent mark.
Yeah. One thing I noticed was kind of interesting. I mean, I wasn't high on anything or anything, but when I looked up at that, after it went over, the sky turned into geometric patterns. And I learned later, reading some science articles, that the human brain, when it's exposed to an intense magnetic field, will see geometric patterns. So it was kind of interesting.
I've experienced that too, and I thought it was something like that. Yeah, I've been very fortunate to have had so many physical experiences and not physical.
Yeah, that's great.
It's very complex. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, I think more and more we're going to be able to create those experiences for people using citizen science, whether it's helping people generate those electromagnetic fields, or just like you said, Greg, it's like us putting all these puzzle pieces together, and also solving, you know, stepping forward and solving this disclosure issue and ourselves, right? Through Mark's initiative, through Kenny's initiative, through Dan's initiative. Like we get to choose how we do this going forward, because we have bodies and we're alive. So it's really exciting to have people come together and make choices on how we want to do this. Let me invite Mark forward to add your contact experience. Thank you.
I don't have a contact experience. I had a technical question, so I'll wait until if somebody has a contact experience.
I think you're good. Go ahead and ask a question to Dan and Kenny.
Okay, so I have a question for Dan, Kenny, and also for Mark Sims. If there is this anti-gravity technology, then why are we using rockets to overcome the pull of gravity to get our ships into space? Why aren't we just using the anti-gravity technology? What's stopping us from doing that?
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
the elephant in the room, isn't it? Especially Elon Musk, and all these SpaceX and Virgin and all
Yeah.
these people using rockets, we have to think about what Donna Hare, who testified. She said she worked at NASA for 20 years. She says, I don't know how they do it. There are some people that know, and the secret programs that are going on, and other people that don't have a clue. So you have these two different elements going on within NASA. And if we had anti-gravity back in 1954, then it's just nothing but a very expensive, elaborate props in order to keep the public thinking that we need jet propulsion in order to overcome gravity. And it's a crime, it's a shame. And I'm looking forward to the Nuremberg Tribunals 2.0 to bring all these people who have been keeping humanity technologically hijacked on this planet.
It's a good way of putting it. Mark, what's your take?
My take is obviously that the technology is being hidden from the public and used within these secret programs by those that have been given special access and for special purposes. And I can imagine all sorts of reasons why that would be done. That would fit the model that Dan has spoken to, that, with Project Paperclip, there was a, kind of infiltration of our military industrial complex by these elite engineers that were indoctrinated by Nazi ideology. And over the years, they've taken over and compartmentalized the technology and not allowed that to reach the public market. And so that makes sense to me, for whatever reason, whether it's that or there may be other reasons. Maybe the military has made a decision that it's just too risky for this technology to be put in the public domain and commercialized because it could be weaponized easily by our adversaries. And so we just don't, it's too big of a risk. So we'll just stick with the fossil fuels and traditional energy generation technologies. Solar and wind provide clean energy alternatives. They are taking root and growing quickly. And so I can imagine both of these scenarios being very legitimate. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Desert Rose, Zenka, you said she's up next, or they are, excuse me.
Yes, that's right. And she may be the last one for tonight. And then Dan and Kenny will give you a bit of time to close everything up. Thanks, Mark, and both of the Marks for the questions and the responses. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Not nearly quite so dramatic, but I'm 77 and at the age of 10, so this would have been in the 1950s, I watched 3 saucers like this, heading straight towards Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was about 25 miles out in the boonies. So that started my interest. And Mark, I wanted to say that during the 2020 here in Tucson, we had sightings. There were 3 or 4 of us actually sitting and watching and had some sightings, some very erratically moving bright objects in the sky. So I am very much looking forward to the 2021 gathering, however we gather. And that's all I wanted to say, but I just wanted to say this has been a long time interest, and thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
so much. Yeah, so Kenny and Dan, we give you guys the last word. Some maybe you guys can give us some encouraging insights in how you see that we as a consortium, a motley crew of different organizations, can come together in our lifetime and, you know, create the results that we want and we know are possible for the world, whether it's with the technology, whether it's with disclosure, whether it's downloading, you know, new ideas and technology in our minds. What are your thoughts and suggestions for the road ahead?
Yeah. Kenny, you want to go first, or?
Sure. You know, I learned from, and God bless him, I learned from Costa, energy follows thought. So the outcome that you want, give that your energy, give that your encouragement. That's, yeah, the best thing I can say. And that you have the power, really. You have the power, have faith in yourself. That was my own lesson taught to me from my own personal experiences and encounters. Just have faith in yourself and rethink human, maybe. And that's all I have.
I totally agree. We can't overstate that. We have incredible powers within us to, you know, look what we're doing. We've got this group together here, and we're all talking about this. And you might have noticed that people who you'd least expect be talking about this are talking about this kind of stuff. And so there is definitely this global awakening, and I totally agree on, you know, seeing it. Seeing this world transform. And the first, in order to transform, the only way they can move forward with their agendas is through secrecy. Secrecy is their power. Disclosure is our power, and the power of exposing the truth and the light, because the truth has a way of resonating where a lie doesn't do that. And we all have this ability to sense our intuition of what the truth is. And so we've got all this going for us. And I believe there's a lot of good people that, I agree with you, Kenny. We just gotta,
Work together.
Research. And, I just like to share, it's not a professional page or anything. It's just my online notes that I started ever since I participated in this at thewebmatrix.net. I never have done anything commercially with any of this, never made a penny at any of this ever. I just want to expose the deception. I think it's the greatest injustice that the human race has been lied to and deceived, where we have this incredible potential to transform this earth into, a potentially beautiful paradise where we have technology. We don't have to worry about overpopulation. We can inhabit remote places. We can, the transportation technology, you can be from LA to New York in just 5 minutes or so. You can reverse age people. You can cure any disease. We could have centers set up all around the planet. There's other planets and civilizations that live hundreds, even thousands of years, that they've figured that out. We don't have to deteriorate so rapidly. We could be more. We can contribute to. We can contribute more, but by the time I'm in my 70s, and by the time you start figuring this stuff out, hey, you're almost ready to check out, right? So and the new generations, they have no idea, because they've been using generational indoctrination. They have no idea of the infiltration that has occurred. So I'm seeing that it's escalating more. The dark and the light elements are escalating more and becoming more apparent. And so there is a great potential, not only of dark elements happening, but a great potential for transformation in a positive way at the same time. So personally, I'm optimistic, and that's just me. Even though there's a lot of, concerning elements going on the planet right now, I have a positive vision for the future of Earth, and that these things are going to be disclosed. There's definitely a global awakening happening. That's my 2 bits.
That's
Thank
so
you for
great.
that. Thank you
That's
for
so
that.
great.
I just
Well,
want to, if I may, Zinka, just wanted to give a shout out to Sela Hatch, who came out and published the CE5 handbook with Mark Kaprowski. They are having an event, Fire to the Grid, July 19th. So just speaking of a global and people working together for a better future, this again is July 19th, Fire the Grid. Thank you.
And what time is that going to be, Kenny? What time of the day is that happening?
That's going to be at 11:11 GMT. So 11:11, July 19th, GMT. Thank you, everyone. And Mark, thank you, sir. Zinka,
Yeah.
God bless you. Greg, honor working with you always. And yes, sir. Dan, it's a pleasure, my man. A pleasure, brother.
Hey, Dan, I just would like to invite you to the Harmonic Convergence event. I think you would be an excellent panelist, and you would add a lot of value. So if you're interested, let me know. Go
To thewebmatrix.net. At the top is my email address. Please let me know. I'd be interested.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night, everyone.
yeah,
Thank you.
thanks everyone. Appreciate it. See you guys soon. Thanks again, Dan, for sharing your research, and thanks, Kenny, for doing the interview. We
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
it.
Thank you.
All right, you guys.